But right now we're joined by Craig, the Obamacare lawyer, Craig Gottwals, who makes his living advising companies on the realities of healthcare and benefits and that sort of thing. He's not a politician. He tries to keep them from going broke, so he tells the truth. Hello, Craig.
Good morning, Jack and Joe.
Monster mountain bike ride yesterday. Big fun. Big fun.
Yeah, with no falls. That was the key part of the success.
That young stud with thick arms who was riding twice as fast as me down the rocks. What was the expression?
Me, Joe. Oh, sorry.
What was that? What was that expression he used about that downhill?
Something radical tubular, dude, or something.
That was stupid, dude. And then he roared on past us.
It was pretty funny.
To be young when your bones heal eventually.
I think he might have stolen some of the steroids that you were prescribed.
Well, so you told me a tale of one of our listeners who emailed you with a conundrum.
Actually, I've received a few emails, and one specifically from one of your listeners about this kind of weird, peculiar thing that was going on with the interplay of Obamacare with some of the other forms of government health care we have, namely Medi-Cal, which is the Medicare in California. It's for the low-income folks. And then there's another program called CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, that is also designed for low-income children whose incomes are a little bit too high to qualify for Medi-Cal. So it's not an area that I work in too much, so I didn't, I was just vaguely aware of it. Well, I met with a client last week who is a group of doctors, and they're facing the same exact issue. So I decided to spend a couple hours and research it and write an article about it. And it is a horrific Byzantine example of bureaucratic nightmare. To put it in the simplest terms, the first thing you got to know is that if you are a family, an adult who is making less than 138% of the federal poverty level, you don't have the option to buy Obamacare. You're forced into Medi-Cal.
Even if you want to cut back on the cable, you want to drive one car, you want to live simple life, but it's so important to you, your child gets good medical care, you're willing to move up and pay for it.
Right. Now,
the state forbids it.
You could pay full premium for Obamacare, but that's prohibitive. You won't get any of the subsidies to go ahead and pay part of the premium in Obamacare. The government just says, nope, you got to go to Medi-Cal. You got to go to, and this is Medicaid, I should say. It's nationwide, so it's in every state. Now, the interesting thing is they want to make it so that children have more access to low-income care. So if you're an adult, your cutoff line is 138% of the federal poverty level. But if you're a child, your cutoff line is 266%. And to put that in real numbers for you, I just pulled a family of three. So 138% of federal poverty in California for a family of three is $27,000. And for a 266% is $53,000. Okay, so if you're in that window, if you're below $27,000, adults are on Medicaid. If you're a kid and you're below $53,000, kids are on Medicaid. All right. Well, the problem arises most specifically if you, let's say you're an expecting parent and you go into the emergency room, the hospital, and mom delivers the baby. Well, by law, that baby is on the mom's health care plan for the first month. That's the way every insurance contract works. So that baby would, if mom and dad are on Covered California, because let's say they make 150% of the federal poverty level, they're somewhere between the 27 and 53,000, then the baby would also be on Covered California, and the Pediatrician network is as well. But after the 30th day, the bureaucrats get involved. They realize that the income of the child is low enough to force the child onto Medi-Cal while mom and dad still have Obamacare. And now you have a different network of doctors, and it's very likely that the pediatrician will not be accepting new patients on Medi-Cal because Medi-Cal reimburses even less than Obamacare. So we're running into this problem where kids are losing their pediatrician after their 30th day of life, and they're forced into a whole different health plan and network of doctors than mom and dad.
And then there's a third layer to it, too, right, that we discussed? Like another variation involving CHIP.
Okay, yeah. So that's right. Now, 266% of the federal poverty level is an average in our state, but there are some counties in our state that can go higher. For example, there's one county down south where it's 417% of the federal poverty level for kids. But I think what you might be referring to is the fact that you could have a family of three where each of the three individuals is essentially forced onto a different health care plan. for example, dad could work for an employer that offers affordable health care. Well, if that happens, dad's not going to get subsidies in Obamacare, and dad has to take the employer plan. But let's say mom works for an employer that doesn't offer affordable health care. Well, if mom's income is in that window, mom would get subsidies to buy Obamacare. But if the family does happen to be between, say for $27,000 and $53,000,
right, in that other window we talked about,
in that window, the child is forced to Medicaid, irrespective of the fact that the parents might say, no, please let us just use the Obamacare subsidies and buy the child onto mom's plan. Nope, you got to have 3 different plans.
Right, the government makes you choose your options. So we're looking at a window between, $25,000 and whatever 75, where you could have 3 different. Can you imagine the nightmare of paperwork? And we're not talking about probably a CPA and a lawyer who are married. We're talking about lower income folks who have to sort through the paperwork of 3 different plans. And here's where it gets even more insane. If any significant life change, a raise, a transfer, you move from one apartment to another apartment in a different county or something like that, or you get promoted, all of it gets thrown out. You get kicked off your plan or moved to another plan, or you all switch or whatever, and all of it's mandated. You can't say, no, I'm fine the way I was.
That's right. When the income changes, they have to rejigger the numbers, and you could end up with a change occurring in the middle of the year. Or, even worse, if you don't make that change in the middle of the year, you're going to have a tax problem in April when you go to settle this up with the government, because you may have gotten subsidies that were too high for the way your income ultimately ended up being.
I've had the same doctor for like 15 years, and now my kids have the same doctor I've had for 15 years, but that doesn't sound like that's going to happen as much in the future.
Well, it's possible that it won't, Jack. I mean, it's let's just say it's becoming much more likely that that's more difficult to achieve.
Well, listen, we'll post. I know you're going to publish the article about this in various places. It's amazing to me. The whole Obamacare debate has kind of gone away. I'm looking at a headline right here.
Yeah.
And it was illustrated by a picture of a sad-looking Paul Ryan. Debt fades as election issue. The size of the government, how it spends our money, how it taxes, the incredible debt, drowning in red tape and paperwork, the stalled economy. It's all been eclipsed by the lunatic beheaders. Mm. And now you can't even get voters to pay attention to the way they're being governed. Ah, well.
Well, and this is really a side effect of Obamacare, because just to put this in perspective, with this large doctor group I was meeting with last week, I said, how would you solve this problem? And they said, frankly, it would actually be better to get rid of Medicaid at this point and put them all on Obamacare. That would at least simplify. How bad is Medicaid when your doctors are saying it's significantly better, it's significantly worse than Obamacare?
Well, and didn't you tell me that a recent just real quick, we need to wrap it up, but that recent study.
I'll have it linked in the article, but a recent study came out that's showing that the results of people who are on Medicaid ultimately end up being worse than if you had no insurance at all, because you end up in such long wait times and with such a false sense of security, and so few doctors take it. Medical long-term results end up being worse.
Thank you, oh generous and benevolent big government. Craig, the Obamacare lawyer. We'll have a link to Craig and his professional services and his articles and the rest of it at Armstrong and GettyRadio.com. Hey, thanks, bro. Talk to you soon.
Guys.